Hello YouTube! Are you ever just walking around your neighborhood and you just see a copy of Morrowind lying around on the street? Happens to me all the time. So I picked it up and I gave it the care that it deserves, but then I saw it. What is this abomination doing on my box art? Now, this logo on the box art will definitely spark some questions with fans, including myself. I wanted to know, was Ubisoft really involved in the making of Morrowind? When someone even mentions this online, for example in a video description or in a post, they get immediately yelled at by hardcore Morrowind fans that state that Ubisoft could never make a gem like Morrowind in 1,000 years and that the author is stupid. While actually, they're kinda stupid, because while they're kinda right, they're also kinda wrong. You see, to get the story behind this logo on the box art, you need to know a little bit about the history of Bethesda as a publisher and as a game studio. You see, Bethesda as a publisher wasn't always as big as it is now. Back when it first started, the publishing and game studio parts of the company were actually merged into one company, simply Bethesda Softworks. Now, these guys were basically only active in the United States at the beginning, and, well, they were pretty much an indie developer company like we know them now. They operated pretty much like indie studios as we know them now. Their budgets and staff were not even close to what they are now. A famous story that you can hear in a Bethesda documentary is that the developers of the game, after finishing the game, would help package the games for reviews and actually help send them out to game outlets. Yeah, they were that small at that point. And you can imagine that if you're a relatively small developer based in the US, you can't really do much beyond North America, so Mexico, the United States and Canada. They simply did not yet have a European or even Asian division, while Europe was a sizable chunk of the gaming market back then. So Bethesda back then used the same tactics that some of the indie developers of today employ. They paid another publisher to handle the distribution of their games on the other continent. This started back in the 90s, when Arena had been such a success that they wanted to release Daggerfall in Europe as well, to get more profits. They then employed then developer Virgin Interactive, which was a pretty large European game developer and publisher at the time. They got them to release Daggerfall in Europe, and that's why on German, French and UK boxes of Daggerfall you will still find logos of Virgin Interactive, a company that no longer exists at this point, but they didn't have two great games, in my opinion. Some people like them. Now, Virgin Interactive and Bethesda kept working together closely before the year 2000. Virgin Interactive published some more of their games in Europe, including The Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, also carrying the Virgin logo, like you can see on the picture of my copy of Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. Now, I think that you will get where I'm going with this. For Morrowind's European release, they wanted not Virgin Interactive, rather they decided to employ Ubisoft as their publisher for the European release. And that's actually pretty interesting to think about. Ubisoft once had an Elder Scrolls game in their lineup for Europe. Now, does that make Morrowind a Ubisoft game? Yeah. Does that mean Morrowind is made by Ubisoft? Absolutely not. Should you yell at people for acknowledging the fact that Ubisoft helped spread one of the greatest games of all time around the world? Probably not. Because regardless of what you think of Ubisoft, it's because of them that so many fans from Europe got to play Morrowind. Now, there's actually a bit more to this history lesson, as I discovered while researching it, as Ubisoft did not just publish the game, they even worked on the game itself in a sense, as in Europe it's pretty common for games to get translated to either French or German, so people can play in their native language. However, Bethesda at the time of Morrowind's release did not have an entire translation team at their disposal. Ubisoft did. So, when you're playing the game in either French or German or another European translation, those words were not translated by Bethesda, but they were translated by Ubisoft. I even have a paperbox version of Morrowind, as you can see on the screen right now, with Dutch text on the back. Unfortunately, the game itself is not in Dutch, but the text on the box is in Dutch. That means, yeah, Ubisoft did that. And this story goes even further, as a publisher in Europe, Ubisoft also had to handle the support for the game in Europe. If you dig a bit online, you can still find the British, German and French Morrowind support pages on Ubisoft's website. Even though it's not even in Morrowind style, it's just a Ubisoft plain website with Morrowind and a few frequently asked questions, but it's fun that it's still there. But Ubisoft's relationship with the Elder Scrolls series didn't end there. While Oblivion's initial release in Europe was handled not by Ubisoft, but by 2K Games, Ubisoft was still involved in Oblivion, as Ubisoft published Oblivion only for the PS3 in Europe, which is a pretty select number of games, so their involvement wasn't as big as before. But the PS3 release of Oblivion came later than the Xbox and the PC releases. But, as you can hear, they were involved in Oblivion as well. And yes, if you check the game box for the PS3 game of Oblivion in Europe, you see a Ubisoft logo. Unfortunately, I had to pull this from online since I don't have a PS3 copy of Oblivion. If you dig even deeper on the internet than with Morrowind, you can still even find the actual website that Ubisoft made for Oblivion. There's a German, French and English version. If you go to oblivion.uk.ub.com, you will still find a fully functioning webpage as long as you have Flash Player installed. You can do the same thing with the French website and the German website. Just replace UK with FR or DE. And to be honest, this website is pretty amazing. It's basically the old Oblivion website from back in the day that is now offline, but this one is still here, and I love it. It's a really cool look back at the past, as no soul has touched this site for years, and you can actually see that. On it you can still find some pretty cool features with things like the buy, register and forum buttons no longer working because those separate sites have been taken offline long ago. But the rest of the Flash-driven site itself is still very much up and running, and you can download some cool Oblivion wallpapers, listen to the soundtrack of the games that actually blasts on the background while visiting the site. You can check out old game descriptions, and there's even a codex filled with lore information on what happens in the previous Elder Scrolls games and with information on the races, magic and so much more. Finding this website was an absolute delight, as Bethesda's equivalent has been offline for many years now, and I was always pretty sad from that, but finding this website was really fun. In the case of Ubisoft's website, it seems like either people forgot about it or nobody cared enough to take it offline, which makes visiting it seem like you're almost looking inside the past. I will throw a link to the site in the description of this video if you guys want to check it out for yourself. The codex, especially with the lore, is pretty interesting. And they apparently misspelled the word elf to elfe, and I don't understand why. Now, there's one last thing. In a past long gone now, there was even a planned PlayStation Portable or PSP version of the game. This game, Oblivion for the PSP, is a subject for another history video altogether, but as you can see, Ubisoft was to publish that game too. While after its announcement, we never really heard anything of that game again, until recently when somebody leaked the work file. You can still see the ominous "coming soon" on Ubisoft's website, showing that, yeah, nobody cared about this website and basically everybody forgot about this website. So I don't know if they're deleting this website soon, but I really suggest that you take a look. It's really fun to see the Oblivion site again, and it's really fun to read all the info in the codex, because a lot of the info in the codex we still know, but it's just so fun to see that this site is still working. And the codex is basically one of the few things that we knew about the release of Oblivion before its release, if I'm not wrong. So it's definitely interesting to take a look. So after all this, I can personally say that Ubisoft did a lot for the Elder Scrolls. While not as much as Bethesda, the makers of the Elder Scrolls, of course, Ubisoft helped propel it to the success that it had in Europe, at least for Morrowind and partly for Oblivion. So whatever you think of them as a company, because I know that Ubisoft does not have a high reputation in the Elder Scrolls community, you have to give them credit that because of them a lot of Elder Scrolls fans in Europe, including myself, were able to play Morrowind and Oblivion, and I really appreciate for them keeping the old site online. It was really neat to find that. I mean, it's just so fun to just traverse it. So with that said, this was the first episode of Elder Scrolls History. I decided to try something different once, and I personally really enjoyed making this video. So I might make more Elder Scrolls History videos in the future, but don't expect a lot of them, as lore is the main focus on this channel. And if you're somehow here from not lore related causes, because that's possible since this is not really a lore video, then I really recommend checking out my channel if you're interested in Elder Scrolls related stuff, because I make a lot of videos explaining the lore, so the backstory behind the Elder Scrolls series, and yeah, I think you'll enjoy them. So if you like this video, consider giving a like, subscribing if you want more Elder Scrolls lore. Also, if you want to see all my videos come out, click the bell icon, because subscribing no longer has you see all my videos for some reason, even though that's the definition of subscribing. And if you want to support me in a more personal way, there's my Patreon. You get your name at the end of every video, and yeah, you get some other neat little bonuses, including the ability to attend my lore lectures live. So yeah, with that said, thanks for watching. If you want personal contact with me, my Discord and Instagram are both in the description, and I will see you all in the next lore video, which will come out pretty soon.